What's up, guys? This video is a little bit different, a bit impromptu, if you will, here, but I wanted to walk you through and kind of learn stuff together today, because all the time, different YouTubers out there, they're teaching you stuff, they're showing you stuff, but you're not really getting to see like how they even came to know and understand the things that they do, right? So I'm actually going to be learning alongside you guys right now. One thing that if you've been watching this channel for a while, you probably know is that I am pretty big into crypto, both from like the idea of crypto standpoint, and I'm interested in the technology as well, and the security implications that come with it. Now, if you've even been paying any attention at all to the crypto space in the last 5 years, you'll know that there's a lot of hacks and exploits that have been found, especially when it came to like Ethereum smart contracts. And, these contracts are written in a language called Solidity. So today, to be honest with you, I do not know very much about the vulnerabilities and exploits that are common in Solidity smart contracts. So that's something that I am going to seek to expand my knowledge on right now. And I thought I'd bring you guys along for the journey so you can see kind of how I'm going about doing it. Well, I did some Google searching here. I found an article. I kind of glanced over this a little bit, and it's from 2018, but it seems like it's a very good resource of the vulnerabilities and how they're actually pulled off, because it actually shows you the code. And let me make this a little bit larger for you guys. So I'm just going to go through and I'm going to start, finding out. This is what I would do, right? If I wanted to learn about, okay, what attacks are possible and how could they actually be carried out? This is the type of research that I'd be doing. So maybe you could look at something like Solidity, smart contract, exploits, and things like that. Maybe you can find some real world examples. See, that's how I actually found this Medium article here. And a lot of times Medium articles and things like that are very good sources of knowledge as well, right? Maybe you can find some real world attacks here as well, like real world examples. But I would say you just keep opening a bunch of them and take a look at all of the what you can glean from each thing. But I think in terms of what I would actually spend a lot of time on, this one is definitely pretty solid. So I would basically kind of read over what it is, right? So apparently this article here is highlighting in particular 16 vulnerabilities that have typically been seen before. So let's just see what's going on right here. They have one called Reentrancy, all right? And it says one of the features of Ethereum smart contracts is the ability to call and utilize code of other external contracts. So contracts also typically handle Ether, and as such often send Ether to various external user addresses. Now I'm not gonna read the whole thing necessarily, but one thing I definitely have heard of a lot is DAO hacks, right? The decentralized autonomous organization. A lot of times those things were hacked, and apparently it is related to this vulnerability. The nice thing about this article as well is it cites some further resources that we could look into. Let's take a look right now and see what's going on with this here for the reentrancy. So this whole blog post is dedicated to this attack. And if you're not too familiar, this is what Solidity code looks like down here as well. So these are all really good resources, right? I don't want to get too sidetracked here, but you can pull it up for later. So you can even do some denial of service attacks as well on this stuff. This is something I've heard of a ton, right? Is integer overflow and integer underflow. So basically, they're not properly validating the value of an integer that they're taking in. And because of that, you could actually overflow it by sending a integer that's not, because like, for example, with Solidity, right? It's a very statically typed language, and you got to actually specify which integer type it is. So this is a uint256. Well, if they're not properly checking the bounds of what number is allowed, you could actually enter a value that is outside of the scope of these 256 bits for the integer, or bytes, I believe, for the integer, right? So you could actually, in that case, you could do like an overflow or underflow and actually use that to do some unexpected stuff, right? So here's an example, right? Because, yeah, if it reaches the max UINT value, it actually circles back to 0. But yeah, it all comes down to how it's implemented. But yeah, I know this particular vulnerability was behind a lot of serious hacks that have happened on smart contracts. But yeah, don't want to get too sidetracked from this article here, but it's good that there's so much value in this thing. Basically, the way this code's going to look is you're going to have contracts, or you're going to have a contract, which is basically like a class, and that's going to do some stuff here. Here, this mapping is basically like a dictionary for you, those of you that are familiar with Python. So here, they even explain why it's vulnerable, right? So the purpose of the honeypot contract above is to keep a record of balances for each address that put Ether in it, right? It also allows an address to get its Ether deposited in it. So that's basically what it is. It's putting Ether into a payable honeypot, right? Based off of whatever value they want to send. And then there's another function to get your balance, basically, right? So pretty simple. But why is it, let's see, why is it actually vulnerable? What makes it vulnerable? So you have a mapping here. And these are the data types. When you create a mapping in Solidity, you got to say what data type is the key and what data type is the value. So the key is going to be an address, like an Ethereum address, right? And the data type of the value is going to be a UINT. So that makes sense, right? You'll have an address, and that's going to have a certain amount of Ethereum probably, right? And it's public, and they're calling it balances. The name of the mapping is called balances. So, and that basically explained what I was talking about there. So you might have something like this, right? Balances, and then you pass in an Ethereum address, and it will return what is the balance, right? What is the value of Ethereum for that address, right? So put function below is where the storage of Ether value happens in the contract. Message.sender, that's a special, method here that basically will, it's going to be equal to the address of whoever's sending. The sender's address, basically, right? So this here is going to put the value, basically paying the address there. Okay, here's what's actually vulnerable, what they're about to call out here. So yeah, they want to let the addresses withdraw the value of Ether they have in it as the balance, right? So that's what we're talking about with the get function, right? So here, they're getting that. Oh yeah, so they're saying if it has a value, I think. If not, sender call value balances message.sender. Okay, yeah. So there's some error handling here. That's all. And let's see. So this apparently is the vulnerability. And this is the tricky part about this. What we're doing here is basically what is known as static code analysis. When you are taking the source code and looking for vulnerabilities in the source code. And I'm going to be honest, it is a more advanced thing, especially for security people that don't have a developer background. So if any of you guys are struggling through this, it's no worries. If the more time you spend with programming and the more time you spend with these languages like Solidity or whatever it is you're trying to test for vulnerabilities, the easier it is going to be to identify them. But yeah, this is a more advanced thing here, is static code analysis, as we're doing here. But let's see. A honeypot contract sets the value of the address balance to 0 only after checking if sending ether to message.sender goes through. Okay, so that's what's going on here, right? So this is an error handling. This bit of code is error handling, making sure that sending ether to message.sender actually is going to go through. Then it's going to check only after that if it's 0. So this is what it means to be a hacker, right? If you really think beyond what the expected functionality of something is, right? That's the whole hacker mentality. So it's only setting the value to 0 after that, after checking that. So, basically ask yourself, what if there's an attack contract that tricks the honeypot into thinking that it still has ether to withdraw before attack contract balance is set to 0? So that's basically the hack there, right? So, but now how do we actually carry that out, right? That's another thing, right? So this is going to be done in a recursive manner, and the name for this is called reentrancy attack. So that's basically what we're studying here, is the reentrancy attack. So if you have this contract code, let's see. And yeah, I've coded a little bit of Solidity before, full disclosure here. So I'm not an expert on it or anything like that, but I can at least understand for the most part what's going on. But for those of you that are probably new to this, which is probably most of you, it might be a little bit difficult to grasp here. But this is just the basic. It's more what I'm trying to show you is the methodology of how I'm going about trying to learn about a new vulnerability. Now, obviously, this is a pretty long article. I'm not going to cover all 16 of the different things here. This is just the reentrancy attack, right? I also have way more other ones that I could cover as well. But I just want to keep this concise here because it's getting kind of lengthy. Yeah, let's see, where were we here? So yeah, he's going to break it down anyways, it looks like. But yeah, in my opinion, the best way to learn about a new vulnerability is to read about it first to understand the high-level overview of what's happening, and then try to find a hands-on example of what it looks like and how it can be mitigated. And then thirdly, go and create a lab environment where you can get hands-on practice exploiting it and patching it yourself. That is the gold standard. And optionally, read about a real-world example of it in the wild if you can find that as well. If you do all those things, you're going to understand the vulnerability better than like 98% of people out there, even in this field, because most people don't do that. So first few lines, assigning the Solidity compiler to use the contract. Oh yeah, the Pragma Solidity. That's just what version you use with it. And you import whatever you need to import. We're going to import the honeypot contract. We can create another contract here called honeypot collect. And we reference the honeypot contract through that. Set up the contract base called honeypot collect. Okay. We define the constructor that is called honeypot collect. And address honeypot is what we pass in. So we're going to pass in an address, and we're going to pass in honeypot. Okay, that's the address of the honeypot, I guess. See, this address will be the honeypot contract address. Okay, good. And then let's see, we're going to set honeypot equal to that. Okay, yeah, because yeah, this is just a constructor. So this is like a basic constructor here. And then they have a kill function. Let's see, I'm not completely familiar with this. I know this suicide is a keyword in Solidity. It might be deprecated actually, but I know that is one. This is, keep in mind as well, Solidity has changed a lot. So that is the one caveat with this being a 2018 article. Some of the ways that they're implementing these things might not be the standard anymore. I mean, isn't suicide deprecated? Let me check that really quick. Suicide Solidity. Maybe it's not. Maybe I'm thinking about something else here. There's a lot of different versions, and this language has underwent a lot of changes, so... So it is an alias of self-destruct. That's interesting to note. Okay. But anyways... If you want to, I want to withdraw Ether from the honeypot contract to honeypot collect contract, but I also want to get the collected Ether to an address I own. So I add a mechanism to destroy honeypot collect and send all Ether containing in it to the address that calls the kill function. Okay. So following that function is the one that will set the reentrancy attack in motion. It puts some Ether in honeypot, and right after it, it gets it. Okay. So it's putting it there, and then it's getting it there. The payable term here tells the EVM that it permits to receive Ether. Invoke this function will also... Yeah, this is not very well written. This guy's... I'm getting the notion this guy's probably... English is not his first language. Oh yeah, especially with that name, right? The last function is what is known as the fallback function. This unnamed function is called whenever the honeypot collect contract receives Ether. Okay. Okay, this is where the reentry attack occurs. So just kind of reading over this part. Get function sends Ether. This is called only if this contract has any Ether as balance. So when it sends it, the fallback function is triggered. And then if the balance is more than the value it was sent to, the fallback function calls the get function once again, and the cycle repeats. So recall that the get function, within the get function code that sets the balance to 0, comes only after sending the transaction. So this will trick the honeypot contract into sending money to honeypot collect address over and over and over until honeypot is depleted of almost all its Ether. That's pretty crazy, actually. This is pretty neat. So yeah, you can try it yourself. One test Ether in this contract. Yeah, so what you could do, if you really wanted to try this out, you could get Ethereum on the test net, right? You could get... you use the Ropsten testnet or something like that, and you could get Ether for the testnet absolutely for free, and you could actually replicate this attack, right? You got the code here, the code's here. So this is something you could look into if you want, and I might very well do this because this seems pretty neat. This would be a really cool thing to demo, honestly. Maybe if I get some of these attacks working, I'll show you in some videos. Let me know down in the comments section below if that's something you'd be interested in. I could totally do some Solidity exploitation in here. I would be pretty keen to learn something like that, I must say. But yeah, try it yourself. I left one test Ether in this contract so others could try it themselves. If you see no Ether left there, then it's because someone already attacked it before you. Well, what you could do is you could create this same contract, right, and deploy it to the Ropsten testnet, which is like Ethereum's test network, right? And you could get some free test Ethereum, and you could exploit your own contract. This is something I think I'm going to do this, honestly. This is a really cool idea. And I could do this with like all these different, there's 16 different ones here if I want to, right? So yeah, let's do it. I think I'm going to do that, actually. I never thought that this is something that would be a cool series, but I'm definitely keen on it. And I think it definitely fits with what we're teaching here on the channel as well. If you would like to see that, let me know down in the comments section below. If you've watched all the way to this point in the video, and also along those lines, if you watched to this point, be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and smash the like button as well to help get some crypto love out here. There's not enough crypto love in the security community. So let's change that together, right? And if you're interested in learning more videos along the lines of crypto and security, go ahead and watch the one of the videos from the playlist that's on screen now, and I will see you right over there. So thanks for watching. Later.